We have quorum, so welcome to the Monday, May 10th, 2021 regular school board meeting. Let's stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Kelly, roll call.
Ms. Flynn,
Delayed.
Mr. Galloway.
Here.
Ms. Johnson,
Delayed.
Stanford, here. Mr. Stein,
Excused.
Mr. White.
Here.
Mr. Wolf,
Here.
Ms. Senator,
Here.
Ms. Hughes.
Here. Thank you. Matt, you want to review the fire exits?
Exits are in the back of the LGI.
Thank you. Open to the public. Is there anyone here that would like to make a public comment? Not our one person here. Is there anyone on Zoom?
Couple of folks listening in.
If anyone on Zoom is wanting to make a public comment regarding the budget, that's our next workshop. Okay, let's move on to our public hearing on the budget. Can I have a motion to open our public hearing on the budget?
So moved.
Craig,
Second.
Laura, comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Passes 6-0. Matt and Anne Marie, are you? Presenting? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the hearing on the 21-22 Beacon budget. I just want to take a moment to just review some work that we did a few years ago on creating a mission and creating some belief statements for the district. There was a group of stakeholders, both employees, but also parents and community members on this group a few years ago who came up with this work. And I always bring this up when we discuss the budget the last couple of years, because really these statements and this work that came out is really the basis and foundation of our budget work. So our mission is to prepare every student for learning, life, and work beyond school. And then we have some belief statements that the group came up with, and these are very much in line and use board goal language really for the most part, but belief statements of the diversity of our community is a strength, providing an equitable education for all students, and providing a culture of care, a safe and supportive emotional environment for all. And then the vision. You always hear about mission, and then the vision is that every student in our school district leaves the school district with some skills and abilities. And so I'm not going to go over these in great detail, but the skills and abilities that the group came up with a few years ago: communication, problem solving, creative and critical thinking, collaboration and independence, and digital literacy. And I've said this before in board meetings. I said this on our Zoom town hall the other night, but if there was a year, this past year, where these skills became even more evident in their importance, I can't think of a year. And so these things were on display all year for our staff, for leaders in the district, and for our students. And we really got to hone all of these skills and abilities. But we also have attributes and dispositions that we want our graduates leaving us with: empathy, self-regulation, citizenship and community, curiosity, wonder, awe, and imagination, and adaptability and flexibility. And again, I can't think of a year where these things were more evident and more important in terms of what we need to emphasize with what we do. So we've had some very, very successful budgets over the last few years. And do you want me to close that?
Yes.
Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. We've had some very successful budgets over the last few years in which we've been able to do a number of things that's really supported all of our students, the student experience across the district pre-K to 12. And so over the last few years, we've added 7 elementary class size reduction positions. So those were spread across all 4 of our elementary schools. We wrote a grant several years ago to expand 4th grade instrumental music, and then we solidified that into the budget. We added a social worker at Beacon High School. We added a 0.5 art teaching position at Beacon High School. We really pushed hard with the board's support and got the one-to-one Chromebook model in place a couple of years ago, which was truly visionary because when we had to switch to all remote last spring, we had 0 issues with the hardware. We were able to get Chromebooks in the hands of every single one of our students very, very quickly. And we've also been working on revamping professional development, which has been in some ways, slowed down with COVID this past year, but we're really excited to be ramping that up for next year and future years too. We also, besides what's on this list, we added a little bit of staffing to the PE, art and music at the elementary. So all of that is equitable, and they all have a strong schedule in those things at the elementary level. And we were able to do that 3 years ago. So importantly for this upcoming budget, when we were just a few months ago, really nervous heading into this year, looking at all the fiscal projections for the state and the country, with the different relief bills that have been passed, we're able to maintain and strengthen all of the gains that we've made over the last few years. That's huge. That was keeping me up at night several months ago, just trying to figure out ways where we can keep most of that, and we can not only keep it, but also strengthen. So all of those staffing additions that we've been able to do that were very focused, very both data-based and child-oriented and student-oriented, we're able to keep. Not only can we keep those, but we're also looking in this budget to expand pre-K with a position where we want to pilot a full-day pre-K class. And then beyond that, we're going to be looking into the state grant funding to see if we can even do more than that. We're excited for professional development. Dutchess has really expanded their work in this area, and so we are excited about providing even more professional development in the areas of technology, sustainability, and equity and social justice. And Dutchess has been providing some very targeted PD for the summer and this upcoming school year that we're excited to take part in. Supportive in technology, like I said, we had a very ambitious plan a few years ago to have a Chromebook for every single one of our students, which really paid off at the beginning of this difficult time, and that we didn't have to wait, we didn't have to put orders in, we had them all in place. But when you have that large of a implementation of Chromebooks, you have to keep replacing them, and so our budget supports our technology items, and we'll also be working with staff to try to target different other technology needs that they have. And then also we have just a wide range of student activities that this budget supports. Before the meeting tonight, I was out in the hallway looking out of the windows, and we have our high school students have created an outside stage or an outdoor stage for their performance of Rent, which will be taking place over the next couple weekends. They did a performance back in October. Our athletics began back in the fall, even though they've had some shortened seasons. It's been very successful, and we've had a large number of students come out for that and for other clubs and activities. It's a really key part of our program for students, and this budget supports and strengthens those things as well. When I say strengthens, we want to look for ways to support the programs we already have with our budget, but also when student interest arises about a club, we want to be able to add clubs and other activities as we go.
Okay, so as Dr. Lanzo said, we talked about the final New York State budget, and we were both extremely worried about it. And thankfully, we didn't have to worry after the budget was finally passed. So this New York State budget for 21-22 saw an increase in foundation aid, which we really haven't seen in the last few years. So that's the core basis of our state aid. Governor Cuomo had proposed to have all of our expense-driven aids like transportation aid, building aid, all rolled into this one services aid, and thankfully that did not happen either. Those are expense-driven, so by putting them all together, we were afraid that we would eventually lose aid going forward, so that was good news. The governor's budget had a local district funding reduction, which was taken out of the final budget too. The UPK expansion, as Matt mentioned, there is additional money for full day conversion. It's a grant program, so we're looking into that right now. They're rolling out all of the applications at the current time, so we're kind of reviewing that going forward. There is a new property tax relief credit for homeowners. There's not a lot of information out on that, but if there is, I will gladly forward that along. And there were no changes to the STAR exemption, and the governor was trying to bring that back a little bit more, and we've left it kind of the same. So that was also very good news. So the federal stimulus money, again, the first CARES Act for $822,000 we utilized this year. We covered some of our PPE expenditures to open school. In the fall, we had outside tents, extra cleaning supplies, so the beginning part of some ventilation work. So that will all be expended at the end of June, and that was all in the general fund. The two new ones, the CRRSA, which is the second part of the CARES Act for $2.6 million. That application process just was released today. So it was very interesting, right before the meeting, and we have until June 15th to apply for that. So there's a couple of webinars that we're going to look at to see how they want us to apply for it. It's a multiple year plan. So we will start working on that. Similar is the American Rescue Plan. So you can use things again as ventilation and infrastructure in schools, academic learning loss. Again, there's percentages that have to be allocated for certain things, including learning loss. That application should be out rather shortly. Again, I think it's going to be a quick turnaround as well. That's also a multi-year plan. So it's not just to spend all the money this year and not have anything next year, the year after. It's a multi-year plan. We're going to start working on the budgets for those as soon as we can. This calculation, although small, and I apologize for that, is just basically the calculation for our tax cap. And I think the most important thing to take away from this slide is that we are only increasing the levy, the maximum tax levy increase is $980,000 for the entire budget, or 2.35%. And the tax cap calculation is where we have to be. We have to do the calculation and we have to stick with it. And we are, so our budget information going forward I'll present us being at the tax cap. So there's three parts of the budget: the administrative, the instructional, and the capital piece. So tomorrow on our website, there will be a lot more budget information that you'd be happy to see by budget code, broken out into administrative, instructional, capital. And it has a little bit more information broken out. So this is the state requirement for format. So administrative would be basically what you think administrative would be. So central office expenditures, administrators, their clerical staff, instructional are all the teachers, all the related service personnel, the transportation department, and the capital portion is the facilities and operations department and the debt service department, all required by law to be presented in a certain way. And all of that information, I'll briefly go into it tonight, but it will be all on the website tomorrow for more information. So the administrative instructional capital is a comparison of our final budget of last year, our proposed budget, and the increase in percentages. The important part on the capital piece is that there was a portion of debt service that was less this year than last year, which was helpful in having us pay for all of the other areas in the budget. But again, you see the increase of $932,000. So that is where we need to be. This slide just basically shows the revenue side. And under the proposed budget for 21-22, the tax levy is of 42,545,478 is at the cap. And we did get a slight increase of state aid over last year, which was also helpful. It allowed us not to use as much of the unappropriated fund balance and reserves that we have, so we were able to save $50,000 there. So we're in good financial shape going forward, and that was really due to the additional state aid that we received that helped fund the budget. On the ballot next Tuesday will also be a proposition for buses. And historically, we do put a proposition up for buses every year. Last year was a little bit different due to COVID, but we really do need to replace our fleet on a go-forward basis. We're asking for 272 passenger buses and 320 passenger vans to total $395,000. We do not raise the levy by the full amount of the bus proposition. We do spread it out over 5 years. And the reason we do that is that state aid gives us transportation aid for buses over 5 years. So we wanted to match the payments with the revenue that's coming in. And Beacon's transportation aid ratio is 61.6%. So that's what we receive in state aid to help make the payments. So that's actually a good percentage to actually, to purchase buses. So the budget that we're putting to the voters on Tuesday, I want to give an idea of estimated tax increases. So this slide talks about using current assessment values in Basic Star. I do want to say before I get into the numbers, there has been a lot of discussion in the public. People have received their assessments in both the town of Fishkill, the town of Wappingers, and the city of Beacon. A lot of taxpayers are a little nervous about their assessments going up because they're reflecting more of the market value. I will say that, we had some conversations with the town supervisor and the assessors over the last couple days. And the assessment values on the houses in Beacon, Fishkill, and Wappinger on an average have all raised 8%. That does not mean that your taxes are going to go up 8%. The slide I talked about the tax levy, and we have to be at the cap, that is the total amount that we can receive in taxes. We cannot go up any more. So just because your assessment went up doesn't mean that you're going to be paying more money into the levy. The levy just is spread out over all of the taxpayers. So what does that basically mean? If everybody's assessment goes up around the same percentage, then everybody's taxes will be at a higher assessment, and the tax information would be pretty similar to what this slide is talking about. So for example, an average house in Beacon, if the budget passes next Tuesday, your increase would be about $97 a year or $8 a month in taxes. Fishkill would be $121 per year or $10.08 a month, and then Wappingers is $120 a year with $10 a month. The other important part that I'd like to mention is over the last 2 to 3 years, in the city of Beacon especially, there's been a lot of development, there's been a lot of buildings and properties that have been added to the tax rolls. So what does that really do? That actually spreads the tax levy over more places. And we've seen a tax rate per thousand actually decrease over the last 2 to 3 years across the district, not just Beacon. So I guess my message for anyone who listens to this on YouTube is to not worry about your assessment going up. Everyone's assessment got reevaluated, and just kind of go forward. The way I'm understanding it, it was across the board at 8%. I briefly want to talk about the contingency budget. So we put the budget up next Tuesday. If for some reason it fails, the board has to make a decision as to whether to put the budget back up in June for another vote, to make some changes to it, to put the same budget up. Thankfully, we have not had to go to contingency, but it is it's important. We like people to come out and vote, and we wanted to talk about what would happen. So contingency budget means that the tax levy that we used last year cannot increase into this year if you have a contingency budget. So it's only for ordinary contingent expenditures. For us, that would mean
for us, that would mean a cut of $900,000 from what the budget we're putting forward on Tuesday, which would be significant. Because Matt's talking about all the things we were so glad to continue going forward into this year's budget, we would have to look at those things if we were in contingency. So these are items not included in contingency. So non-mandatory equipment purchases. If you see any equipment in the budget, that would have to come out. Certain student supplies. I think the biggest hit would be facility use of our buildings. And over the last school year, because of COVID, hasn't been something that we're utilizing. Again, we're trying to go forward. So community organizations that use our fields, community organizations that use our buildings would have to pay full price, full market value to use our buildings, which would be really a shame, going forward. But that is part of the law that we would have to do. Computer hardware, not for educational purposes, so computers in offices and stuff would come out. Those are just examples of things that wouldn't be able to be included in a contingency budget. So if you vote yes for the budget, these are the things we are able to continue with. So lower class sizes, a full athletics program, the music in our programs that Matt talked about, the fourth, we enhanced fourth grade band, academic electives, we've been adding a little every year to the high school, extracurricular activities, clubs, and high school clubs. So those are the things that we'd be able to continue to include in our budget. On the ballot also will be a third proposition this year, and it's asking the voters if they would agree to sell the property at Dutchess Stadium. What I should say is we're not selling all of the property at Dutchess Stadium. We're selling the 33 plus or minus acres that sit right underneath the stadium, the baseball stadium. We have our bus garage there. That land we are going to keep. And there's another 20 plus acres on the other side of the stadium that we are going to keep. So we're just asking the voters to sell the property that sits right underneath the stadium and the adjacent parking lot. The total amount of the contract would be $627,000. It's not on this slide, but it is on the actual ballot, so you'd be able to see that. And our plan is to take that funds and put it in towards a capital project that we're going to ask the voters to vote on in October. So that money could be used for enhancements here in the district for school, help us do more repairs and additions here in all of our schools.
I'm just going to very quickly talk about this. We've spoken about it before, but we do also have an allocation of $4.1 million from the American Rescue Plan. That's over the next few years, that amount. And one of the first things they're asking us to start planning with that is for summer programming. So we put the postings out. We're getting teachers excited and hopefully involved. And it's not just a focus on academics. In fact, I think more importantly, it's a focus on just being together with trips and clubs and activities. And we're very excited about that. We're also going to be working with Dutchess BOCES. It's actually our kickoff meeting just internally is tomorrow, but to do a social emotional review of our students and staff over the next couple of months to help us plan for next year too. The reason I have this up here for the budget hearings, the American Rescue Plan money is very, very targeted. It's asked us to focus on a few things. One is infrastructure. So we're planning on using about $1 million of the $4 million for our capital project that will be coming out to the voters in October that we're working on putting together now. It's asked us to focus very clearly on summer programming for students, and then also support both academic and social emotional, not only this summer, but over the course of the next couple of school years. So it's not something that we can just sort of put into the budget to help us make ends meet. It's for very specific things that they're asking us to do. So I think this is important in terms of the budget as well. As I reflect on the budget year, back in July of 2020, we were just coming off the 3 months of closure, the huge spike in cases that happened in New York, communities across the country trying to figure out what next steps were in dealing with schools in the time of COVID. And we had just, we just had a high school graduation at the drive-in up in Hyde Park. It was a beautiful ceremony. It was amazing that they pulled it off. But that was just an example of kind of the lengths we were going to make things happen for students. We took we regrouped a little bit at the beginning of July, and we just kind of then started laying out our thinking and our planning, both with lots of Zoom town halls with our employees and also lots of Zoom town halls with parents and community members. And the reason I bring this up is I think it's important for us, and I put it in our budget mailer back in September, and sometimes it feels like it was about 10 years ago, but back in September of this school year, we are the largest district in Dutchess County by far to open up for in-person students at the beginning of the school year in September. And that is a testament to our staff that made all that happen. It's also a testament to our parents who had trust in our plan to make that happen as well. Over the course of this year, we put the 2021 budget to work. We didn't just start, we looked for ways to improve throughout the year. We made sure we had our PPE ordered on time. We didn't use that as an excuse. We got the filters, the necessary filters for our unit ventilators. We've added portable air filters for our classrooms. We've always looked at things that will help mitigate the virus and be able to enable us to bring more students back. Also, we were able to plan for instruction for about a third of our students, that number's come down, who were working remotely this year. We kept tweaking and working on it, and then this spring we were able to pull off bringing students back for 4 days a week. I should note that some of our E&L students and some of our students with IEPs were coming to school 4 days a week from the beginning of the year. We didn't close around the holidays. We didn't take weeks off after breaks. We stayed open. We stuck to the plan. And now we are very, very ready with this budget that we're proposing to the public to do a full reopening for next year. There's tons of question marks. I won't get into those tonight. One is, how much planning for remote instruction do we do? We're going to be working on that very carefully over the next few months, but we will be able to open fully in September for all of our students, and we're very, very excited about that. Part of that is because of the budget. Part of that is because of the support of the board, and so everything we're doing, we have to be flexible, we have to be nimble, we have to kind of make changes on the fly, but we are committed to making it work, and the budget helps us make that work. We have a lot to be proud of on the side of reopening as a district, and the budget really made that happen, and will make it happen for next year. And then finally, I think this plays a role in our thinking as well. And so I just wanted to take a moment while people are listening to talk about an upcoming capital project. It is very much still in the developmental stage. I think we'll be able to share really clear details about the plan in early July. But we have a committee at every single one of our buildings working on looking at needs with our architect, with me, with Anne Marie, with Anthony D'Amato. There's parents on the committee, there's teachers and staff on the committees. We have one at each building. We're trying to figure out both infrastructure needs that we need to support with this capital project, but also instructional needs. We are committed to making an impact, both sort of an infrastructure impact and a very visible educational oriented impact at every single one of our buildings. And also hopefully improvements that the community can take part in as well. So more information will be coming on that, but it is part of all of this, and so we'll be going very public in July, just a few months away, and doing a lot of communication between July and the vote in October. So just a reminder that the vote is a week from tomorrow, May 18th. We have some super expansive voting hours there, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. at Beacon High School and Glenham Elementary School. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me or to Anne Marie. We'd be happy. This is both to the public and to the board, happy to answer them as we go. But thank you for your support both to the community and to the board through a challenging year this year. And it's really exciting to be talking about next year already. It's exciting to be talking about a budget that supports students coming back fully. And I just can't wait to get started. What questions do you all
Thank
have?
you,
Or
Matt.
do we open it up?
Maybe, yeah, why don't we open it up to public and then we can go to board questions. Is there anyone, would you like to, any questions? Are there any questions on Zoom about the budget? Sorry to single you out. You'll never come to another board meeting.
We're appointing her tonight.
Yeah.
Thanks for your patience. Is there anyone on Zoom that has a question?
We open the hearing?
Yep.
Okay.
He's saying no.
No? Okay. Questions from board members? I actually have a quick
And-
question.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Is it still possible to get an absentee ballot for someone who will not be around on the 18th?
Yes.
And that you just get through the district office, email?
We should reach out to Kelly Apology, the district clerk.
Okay.
They're on the website also.
Okay. Oh, great. Thank you.
We did do a budget town hall on Thursday of last week. We had a little technical difficulty, which after our post game analysis, it turned out it was my it was my fault. So we may have lost some viewers at the very beginning, but I can share the questions that came up from that if more people may have been at that than here. So whenever I can do that now, or
Yeah. Do you want to go through this?
so we didn't get a ton of questions. I think we got about 6 or 7. But a bulk of the questions were about the sale. They came from different people, and they were about the sale of the land at the stadium. And it was questions like, is this the right time to sell? Why don't we just keep it as a rental property and earn money from it that way? Why are we doing this now? And so Emery and I, answered those with what we've been talking about with you all, that it's great to have a buyer, that we are keeping some of the land that we have up there, that the sale amount is a quite significant amount that we aim to put towards a capital project, whereas a rental, how much was the rental arrangement?
It's a minimal amount.
It's 29,000 a
Right,
year.
the
I
rental
think,
amount
yeah.
was like 29,000 a year, which doesn't really make an impact. The 600,000 plus really makes an impact, especially with us targeting it towards the capital project. But we did, we got some questions about that, so we can talk about that a little bit more if you want. We've got a question about will the pool reopen to the community? And so we're working on a plan to make sure this summer that we can start reopening some of those things, obviously done in a safe manner, but we want to start, as New York reopens, we want to start reopening some of our facilities to the public. As you all see, our open air track is heavily used this year, I think because of probably the pandemic and its location, but a lot of people are making use of that. We had a question about who gives budget presentations and who does not. The question was about, does the director of security give a budget presentation? My answer to that was, we actually didn't have principals do specific budget presentations, or Mark, our director of security. Essentially, the bulk of their budget is the staff that they have. And especially in the director of security's case, it's pretty much the budget is the staff members he has. But we'd be happy in a future board meeting to get into detail about that. Do you remember any other questions? We posted on YouTube today. Thank you, Mike Damschak, for making that happen. And but normally in a normal year, we probably would have done a bunch of meetings and stuff to get the word out. So we tried that. We happened to do it on a very, very beautiful spring evening as well, so that may have worked against us. But anyway, so I don't know if the board wants to kind of weigh in about the sale of the property in a public forum, but that it was interesting that probably the bulk of the questions that night came about that. I don't think any of the questions were necessarily challenging the decision, just kind of wondering about the why part.
Yeah, and I think it's important to for the public to know that we've been talking about this since the 20-year lease expired 2 years ago. We extended the lease once, we extended it again to get through this sale negotiation. And I can only speak for myself here, but I do feel like the timing is actually really important because the county has this opportunity with their league changing. I am not a baseball fan, so I'm not going to try to describe any of the terms, but it's a different league. They're going to be using it a lot more. They're interested in improving it. And, we own the land underneath it. We don't have anything to do with the stadium. And it's been an awkward relationship, I think, in my opinion, since the beginning. And we were not making very much on it. I mean, when I saw the lease, realizing that we were making under $30,000 on it a year, it really didn't make sense to hold on to it. I'm glad that we're retaining some of the property, but we're not in the business of being landowners. And so this feels like a very clean way to rid ourselves of it, make some, use money for our capital project and not have to deal with tearing down a stadium in order to sell the land. I don't know if any other board members have.
I do, yeah. This is urged upon us also by the county administration. Mark Molinaro and his team are clear that they prefer to buy the land and own it and own the land under the stadium. And this is important to them because they are dealing with the baseball industry, which is on the rise here, given that the farm team is now part of the Yankees franchise and goes to a high A level, which is an upgrade and a longer season. So this is a great time to be chiming in a positive direction. So we've been going back and forth over some time to review all the options. And this one seems clear to me to be the best one. And I'm happy to, if anybody wants to get more details about it, then maybe we need to do a Q&A or something and put it on the website, some kind of further explanation.
I actually asked our legal counsel today to put together a letter that will hopefully go out on Wednesday, and we can also put it on our website explaining the history and the situation.
Yeah, I think that it's been on our radar for a long time, but it's just hit a lot of people, they've just come to it for the first time. And I think the complexity is something that is hard to appreciate. So I feel very good about the decision and feel like it was perfect timing. With the capital project coming, it's also very good timing. And as Meredith said, it's never, even though people look at the land and think about the boom that's happening in the Hudson Valley, this is land that has a stadium on it and that has some very specific buyers. And we don't own the stadium, so it was super awkward.
Anybody else have any comments about the stadium sale?
I think the other part to keep in mind is that we're selling it, but it has contingencies on how it could be used as well. So it can't be like developed by developers and stuff. So this contingency is how it could be utilized.
So, I shared when we did agenda setting on Friday, I shared with Meredith and Alyssa that, we did have a number of questions about the sale. So Meredith, I thought it would be great for the communication to come from the board. So Meredith, I guess you're working with Dan Pettigrew to put together the letter. So we'll email it out to everyone on our list. We'll put it front and center on the website. And I'll, if I feel like there's more questions coming up about it, we'll do that. I also will, just in terms of kind of getting the word out, I'll reach out to all of our PTO presidents just to do like reminders in their messaging about reminding people to vote and the things that this budget supports, just reminders on that. And we'll do just some quick social media reminders too. And so on that, we can just do a couple bullet points about the sale of the stadium as well.
Agreed.
So what it reminded me of, some of the questions that came up reminded me of questions the board had like a year ago,
Mhm.
just because you've been working with it for so long. So, but again, it wasn't a huge deal. We didn't have a huge turnout to our Zoom town hall. I'm sure the YouTube numbers are through the roof though right now. I just thought it was interesting that because even when we answered a question, another one would pop up about the stadium. So it just kind of
Yeah, and I think
raised a flag.
it is important for us, I mean, not just with this, but with everything, with all the work we're doing, to realize that anyone might step into this at any time. And it's important to be able to give enough history so that the decisions make sense and that they understand that they've been weighed carefully. And this has been going on for a really long time. But actually, it's gone a little bit quiet in our conversation over the last 6 months. So it's important to bring up the entire story again.
Right.
And also
and I just also want to take a moment to say a huge thank you to the board for putting in so much time on that. Like, that is for sure one of those things that no one has any idea out in the public of how much time you all have spent on that over the last 2 years, trying to figure out all the details for something that just becomes a couple lines of a proposition on a vote. But I will speak for the board and just say that, they've put an incredible amount of time on making this happen. And the focus of the entire board throughout this whole process is for sure getting the best deal for our taxpayers, but also making sure that we're going to, if we do sell it, that we're going to be putting it towards our students.
Right.
And so, the using the proceeds from the sale to the capital project actually requires another vote. So when we do the capital project vote in October, there's a separate proposition that voters would have to approve, the use of the 600,000 plus towards the capital project. So there's a couple layers of voter approval in this whole thing as well.
Yeah, which makes the communication all the more important. So it's not a surprise to anyone. And we will still have access to the stadium. It will probably be a little bit harder to schedule, but this isn't closing the door to that relationship. And I'm sure that we will use it at,
Right. And I just want to speak to that while I have a second, because sometimes conspiracy theories arise out of nothing. And I don't have some attempt to end the high school year early with our early graduation this year. We have high school graduation at Dutchess Stadium on June 11th, Friday, June 11th. And it's not because I have thoughts about the high school year needing to be shorter or whatever things people were coming up with. It is literally one of the only open slots that we had to get it in. And then the why Dutchess County this year, when we've talked about doing it behind the high school, is there are, even as lots of things start opening up, graduation ceremonies still have a lot of rules and regulations behind them. And Dutchess Stadium allows us for families to bring, I think we're thinking right now it's going to be each student gets 5 tickets, which I just got to say is better than any other district in Dutchess right now with graduation. And our rain dates are behind the high school because we could only get that one night at Dutchess Stadium. And if we do it behind the high school on our field, every graduate can only bring 2 people. And I won't get into all of that, but it was nice to have Dutchess this year. And I hate to be pessimistic, but we've all learned you can't make predictions about the virus. So if we still have these sort of event limitations next year, it might make a lot of sense for us to use Dutchess Stadium for graduation next year too. But I think our overall plan is to start migrating it, to behind the school when people can be closer to each other. I know that's what the seniors wanted. They voted and they really wanted it behind the high school, but Dutchess Stadium allows, at least most of their family to be able to attend. So.
Are there any other questions from the
Yeah.
board regarding the budget?
I just had a question on slide number 12, Anne Marie, where it was breaking down the administrative, the instructional, and the capital. Why is it that the increase or the percent increase for the administrative was like almost double that of the instructional?
There was a reallocation, a portion of it is a reallocation of the security area of the budget. Last year it was put into the facilities portion, or into the instructional piece. And then it actually has to be put into the administrative piece. So all the budget codes related to that had to go up there. So that's going to show a swing.
Mhm. The other part is the administrators. It's not just the administrators' salaries, it's also their support staff as well.
It's the administrators' salaries, it's their support staff, it's the fringe benefits related to those salary items. It's all the office expenditures related to those offices. So superintendent's office, business office, assistant superintendent's offices, building level principals as well. So it's not just administrator salaries.
Right. Okay. I thought it was important to point out.
That is very important. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to make some additional comments and elaborate on what Mrs. Corderoni said about the assessments. We don't do the assessments. We do the budget and generate the tax levy, as she explained. There's a lot of factors that can affect what happens to your final tax bill. And we only control the one little chunk of it. So I remember the last time around, I had a constituent complain liberally about a big increase in their tax bill. I said, I don't know your situation, but you should look at whether your assessment changed or whether anything changed. Like, for example, did you have a star come in or go out? Did you get an enhanced star or lose it? Did something change in your property? Did you add a swimming pool or a deck or what have you? There's many factors involved, and then there's the equalization rate among different towns. So there's a lot of moving parts between what we do and what happens to somebody's tax bill. And trying to track every one of them down could take you the better part of a day. But I just want people not to be blaming us for things that we didn't do. You can blame us if you want for what we did do, but we're only one part of the picture.
I know there's been talk. So for me, the good news was that the increase in the assessments was pretty straight across the board
Yes.
between the two towns and the city, which is helpful. And the other part you mentioned, equalization, and thankfully for our 3 municipalities, it's all at 100%. Because that, when I first came to the district, that was very different.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it did definitely change. So I'm hoping that the tax rate per thousand actually decreases. And again, we're anticipating some properties that are coming onto the tax rolls this year. I know everyone was notified now from their town or their city because they have a grievance procedure that they can go through.
Yes.
But the school district doesn't receive the information till the summer. Until then, we put the warrant out at the end of August. So the estimates that I was using were last year's assessments. And again, I always look at it as worst case scenario. And then in August at the board meeting, we talk about what the tax rate is and what the taxes are anticipated to go up or down. And then it'll be a clearer idea. So yeah, I think that's really important to mention.
Any other comments or questions for Matt or Anne Marie? Thank you so much. I'm so excited about this budget. A few months ago, I really thought we would be, holding our heads up to try to approve this, feel good about the budget. But instead, we're keeping all the things that we have worked on for the last few years, which are going to be all the more important in the fall. So thank you very much for your work on it. Can I have a motion to close the public hearing on the budget?
So moved.
Alyssa, is there a second?
Second.
Kristen? All in favor, or comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 8-0, sorry. Can I have a motion to adjourn to executive session to review the employment history of particular individuals and for the purpose of discussing collective bargaining with the Beacon Teachers Association?
So moved.
Flora, is there a second?
Second.
Alyssa, comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 8-0. The board expects to return in about a half hour. Reviewing the agenda, there is one change to the agenda, just a revised PRAL committee meeting minutes. And that's all there. Are there any student or school presentations? Or parent groups on Zoom? Okay. Matt, do you want to give your superintendent's report?
Yeah. I said a lot earlier today, so I'll make this short, but I just wanted to highlight something that has been in the news a little bit the last couple of weeks, but we didn't talk about at the board level, and that is Mr. Giametta has worked with a number of districts in the area to make our pool available to them. And so basically, schools were able to have a swim season because of Beacon for the most part. And so I just want to really, give Mr. Giametta a shout out for making that happen. And the Poughkeepsie Journal covered this and did a story. And then I see just because we also had Our Lady of Lourdes swimmers here as well, and they got an article written about Beacon doing this with the pool in the name's not coming up, but in like the National Catholic Journal, or whatever their media magazine is. And so I just think it's another cool example of all the flexible thinking and cooperation and teamwork and all that stuff that not only were we able to do internally in the district, but also with a lot of other districts too. And it's really cool. And if you think about like the number of kids across this region, especially Dutchess County, that were able to have a swim season because of our staff. Larry Collins also was a big part of making this happen. It's pretty cool. So I want to take a moment to just celebrate that. And then every time we have a board meeting, I just kind of bring up that we're still working on graduation plans. We talked a little bit about the high school. Anne Marie, was I the first person to talk about numbers of people? All right, so that'll be a little test to see if people are watching the board meeting tonight, but we've been keeping that under wraps. There are a lot of rules and regulations about graduations. Our high school one is going to be over 200 people. So we are working through with the county health department and our own staff, all of the things we need to do to make sure we can bring all those people to graduation. So there'll probably be communication coming out about high school graduation in the next few days as we firm up our plan. But we are planning on having an 8th grade ceremony as well. We may need to split the 8th grade group into 2 different groups. So we can have it behind the high school and kids can have family members be there. And then each elementary school is also planning year-end celebrations. And there's some really creative things happening. And so that's really exciting to see. And as I've said before, I think it's really, really important for our students and our families and our staff to have these celebrations at the end of the year and graduations as close to normal as possible. That is all I have. I shared a whole bunch earlier during the presentation.
Thank you. Committee reports and board comments. Anthony, start with you.
The curriculum committee has not met since the last board meeting. I have no other comments.
Thank you. Kristen?
You're turning yours off and on. Mine's just a hot mic. Okay. Facilities, the next meeting is May 20th. And as Matt discussed earlier, most of our focus right now is on the capital project, and we will have more input from the building leadership teams. Thank you so much to all the people volunteering and putting in their time to provide input and towards the development of the project. I really appreciate it. And also thank you to Matt and his team for all the hard work putting this budget together. It's really nice to be in this position now where we feel so good about building on the programming that we've already been doing over the past few years. And it was a really hard year for them in so many ways. And so just very grateful for all of the time and effort and leadership.
Thank you.
We are super excited about the facilities meeting. We're in the midst of our second round of meetings with the school committees. We did 3 schools last week, and we have the other 3 schools this week, and the engagement level in those meetings has been really high. People are really excited about the design process. And the second meeting is less me, which is good. And Bill's putting this, either the drawings of the school or going on Google Earth and, sort of drawing on the screen. So they've been pretty productive. So we're really excited about sharing more on May 20th.
We should be clear, Bill is our architect.
Sorry, Bill
I feel
Westbauer.
like for Bill, it's like,
Mhm.
wait. That's Tetra Tech, our
Any
architect firm.
hats? Thank you. Craig?
So we're looking to get a meeting of the Audit and Finance Committee meeting, and still looking for a suitable date. Meredith suggested that maybe we could go a little later into the calendar, which is fine with me. That's just that I can't do anything on the 20th or the 27th. So those are dead days for me. But do you, other members of that committee, have some thoughts about the suitable date? where we
I
can
don't
get
have a
together?
date idea, but I do want to make sure that we don't lose our volunteers. So we've been communicating with the people who've
Oh, well,
interviewed.
we have 1 volunteer left to get into a meeting, but we need to set the meeting first. So I don't think we'll lose them.
Well, maybe we could set the meeting right now. You suggested the 24th or the 25th. I'm good for either one of those.
Are you okay for the 24th? That's a Monday. We don't have a board meeting on that Monday because,
Not Memorial Day, right?
nope, the Memorial Day is the 31st. That's the
Okay.
following Monday.
Okay, that's fine.
The 24th?
24th? Okay, so May 24th.
Great. Let's do it. Well, 7
Oh,
o'clock.
Anne Marie cannot make the 21st. Can you make the 25th, Anne Marie? Can we do the 25th, guys?
25th
Anthony?
is,
Anthony can't do the 25th.
yeah, we really should have Anne Marie
Yeah.
Porteroni, our CFO there.
about her.
but,
That would be a colossal waste of time. to do
Anthony,
that.
what's that whole week like for you? 26th, 27th, 28th?
Well, Craig can't do the 27th
Okay. No, you
I
can't
can't
do
do
the
the
20th.
I can't do the 26th either, but.
or the 26th.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
You're the busiest retired person I know.
I know. Well,
What
no,
about, do you think
there might be
facility?
more.
Oh, and you can't do the 20th either because it's your anniversary.
right.
The 19th?
What?
19th. Well, that's the budget.
After
We're their election. It's okay by me. I mean, I
Yeah,
don't.
it's my 20th anniversary, but
Oh, that's yours too?
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
I'd rather not.
I sympathize with you.
Understood.
I don't like to pull that, but it is 20 years. Well, okay, so we can go into the next week because the next BOE meeting isn't until the June 7th.
Yeah, so there's
So what about
Tuesday.
the, Anthony, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, not good for you? What's,
Mondays and Thursdays are the best.
31st
okay,
is
so how about the
Memorial Day.
3rd, June 3rd?
Third looks good. Thursday, the 3rd.
Anne Marie? Okay, June 3rd it is,
June 3rd.
PM?
7 p.m.?
PM.
Let's have I do think we should should we, I don't know, communicate
Yeah.
with the volunteers?
Yes,
just so
we
that- 'cause
should.
I feel like it's been since the first person interviewed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it
feel like
has.
it's been too long.
So
wanna
Craig, will
catch
you?
I will touch base with each of them.
Okay.
And hopefully we can, I think that that date and time would be good for the 3rd candidate. I hope so.
Okay, because we should make some decisions. I mean, at that point, we, basically we're teeing up for the
Reorg, yeah.
reorg meeting, which is great,
That's right, yeah.
as long as we're, up and running for that. Okay, any other?
I
comments
think
from
during the, I'll send you an email, Craig, but I have some thoughts about how we should start to plan a calendar out for the agenda.
A calendar for the year, you mean?
Yep.
It'd be nice if we can establish a regular date, and then I can
Right, and
avoid
topics
conflicts.
too.
Okay,
Okay, Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you. John?
Um, I've got nothing tonight, but for any parents that are out there listening, then they want something to do for their kids, there's Beacon Hoops is trying to start up this summer. So if anybody would be interested, definitely be on the lookout and reach out to Mr. Griffin if you have any questions.
Great. I'm so happy to hear Beacon Hoops is happening. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Jasmine?
I don't have anything to say at this moment.
Thank you. Flora?
So we had the public relations advocacy and legislative meeting last week. I would say the primary thing we talked about was a letter opposing the Little Water Charter School in Poughkeepsie. We're expressing our support with the Poughkeepsie School District in opposing that charter school. That's on the agenda for tonight. And we also added some pages to the advocacy section of the website. I just wanted to make people aware of that. So it's under the Board of Education section, but basically there's, helpful information there about what you can do. There's a list of the board statements that we've made over the years in regards to certain issues and legislation. There's a list of government and media contacts and just some basic information about sort of the structure of the public schools. I think it's a really useful resource for people who care about public education and they want to help and they want to advocate. And I hope that it acts as a jumping off point for that. Last week was also the Dutchess County School Board Association meeting, and Mr. Keller Coffey, who is a representative from the Center for the Prevention of Child Abuse, he's also a member of the board of the association. He did a presentation, and basically he was talking about how to recognize and deal with signs of child abuse. And he talked about ACEs, which adverse childhood. Does anybody remember the acronym? I always forget. It's adverse childhood experiences, I think. And I was glad to know that members of our staff have had professional development that covers ACEs issues. So, I was heartened to know that we're focusing on things like that. They were also talking about ideas for DCSBA meetings for next year. And there's, with possibly a focus on social emotional health and returning to normal or something like normal in the coming school year. So if anybody on the board has ideas for the kinds of discussions they should be having, the kinds of people that they could be bringing in to talk, it's the kind of thing that's heard by boards throughout the region, so it can be really impactful. So if you have any ideas, I will send Kelly Lappin's email around, and you can just reach out to her yourself. You don't even have to go through me, and let her know what you think they should be talking about. That's it.
Thanks, Laura. Melissa?
We did not have our policy meeting last week due to I had a conflict, so sorry about that. So our next meeting, I think we decided on the 20th at 6 p.m. Is that confirmed?
That's what I have in my notes. Yeah, before facilities.
Right. So that will be our next policy meeting. I know Matt talked about Mr. Giametta and what's happening with sports, but I also wanted to just give a shout out because I've been going to some spring softball games, and it's just so nice to see the kids out on the field, and the fields look beautiful. And John Giametta's out there every game, walking around and talking to people, and it's really nice to have sports back. So I just wanted to say thanks to him for making that happen. And that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention that last week was Teacher Appreciation Week, and we so appreciate our teachers. They are the backbone that makes it all happen. I also wanted to mention, I sent everyone an email tonight asking if you were available to do a short retreat about our board evaluation before the canvass of the votes on Tuesday. if everyone is able to come in at 7:30, I thought we could have just a quick chat about it and make some notes about, what we wanted, how we want to move forward.
I'm not available.
Okay, what time are you available on that,
What day?
on Tuesday, the 18th,
I'm usually rushing from my job to get here for that.
for the campus of votes? Oh, that's right, okay. Okay, so I'll send out a doodle poll to see, maybe we can do it another night before a board meeting. Because I don't think it would take very long, just a couple common themes. I did send everyone a summary of the evaluation, so you can take a peek at that. And the only other thing I wanted to mention is that the Beacon Advocates for Music sent a letter just detailing some donations they recently made, sheet music, method books for elementary instrumental music, xylophone, ukuleles, other supplies, and they had received a donation from Beacon Arts and Ed Foundation. But I just wanted to mention it because, we can follow all these various groups on whatever social media you choose, if you choose any. And it's great to know when they're doing little fundraisers or what they're up to. It's a great way to keep in touch with them. So that is all for me. Moving on to new business. We have this letter that we put together, Flora actually put together at our last PR committee meeting. And has everyone had a chance to read it?
Yes.
Are there any questions or comments about it?
I have a question about it. Well, mostly a comment. I think the wording is a bit aggressive. It seems like it's kind of villainizing charter schools in a way. I'm not opposed to charter schools. My daughter goes to one. I don't think that it would be a bad thing, quite honestly, if it was in Poughkeepsie. Sometimes schools overflow, and most of the time those schools pick it up. I just think that the verbiage is aggressive.
Are there any other comments? I can say that I do feel really clearly opposed to charter schools. I feel like that they've been really harmful to public education. There's a lot of examples of charter schools that have operated without any accountability, and where children have really been the victims of that situation. The Poughkeepsie example is really a very clear one of where they would be using a huge percentage, I think it's 5% of their budget, to fund a school that would serve less than 10% of their student population. So it just feels like a real big misuse of public funds, taxpayer money, with very little accountability. So yeah, everyone, we're all one of 9 on this board. I can say without any reservation that I oppose charter schools. So
Same here.
I feel fine about the language, but yeah.
I think that, yeah, I'm not impressed with what's happened with charter schools, and I know the one that existed in Newburgh closed down, and all the kids that were going there were suddenly left to go to other schools or back to where they came from. It sounds a little strange, I know, to be talking about Poughkeepsie because it's some distance away, but so far as I know, there's nothing that stops a student from Beacon going to another school. And when they do, what happens is we have to send the money along with them. And therefore that money is taken away from all the students in our district. So my complaint is also about the financing system, which is not the fault of any proposers of this charter school or any other. It's the fault of our state legislature for having a finance system that puts the burden of the cost on the backs of the students in the public schools. And that's the part that I cannot abide.
And just to clarify, it's New Covenant, right? Is that the school? Is it a charter school or is it a private school?
It's a private charter school.
It's a
Both,
private charter
yeah.
school. Okay.
I do see, and I'm not saying that there are no examples of how charter schools have dropped the ball, but I mean, there's no perfect district, quite honestly. We all dropped the ball, quite honestly. But I do think just the wording is just a bit much. I can see where the funding, it might be overused in a way. I don't really agree with it.
I hear what you're saying. I think my issue a lot of times is that, and this is something I've experienced in my own school district growing up, is that charter schools become a corporate enterprise, a corporately funded enterprise with very little oversight for how that money is spent. And I think my approach in putting the letter together was to take language from the letter that Poughkeepsie had already put together, but also, we developed some of the language ourselves. And I do personally feel, as Meredith said, and others have said, that charter schools take away resources and funding from public school districts without a whole lot of oversight. And that is the part that bothers me. So I feel I completely hear what you're saying, but I do feel comfortable with the strength of the language because I feel that way as well. And I mean, I assume that's why we all get a vote on it. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
I feel comfortable with the strength of the language because typically charter schools, and I think this one would be no exception, prey upon systems that are struggling and students that have been abandoned in many ways by a lack of investment and proper management of public education. And then what ultimately ends up happening is they serve a percentage of students rather than all students. And in that case, it leaves many students to languish without options. And then it creates this dual funding system where public money goes towards a separate entity that has to abide by different rules or can abide by different rules with a lot more freedom and, again, less oversight. And the ability to, the idea of cherry picking students as a parent of a child with the, special education need, those schools, what they do is really often, generally speaking, count on their testing scores to draw people and show success. And that's the accountability that they have. But if you could have that without any special education students or limiting the number or picking which kind you take, it then again removes a certain population of students from the overall population, and it leaves a lot of kids with greater needs behind, more expensive kids too, kids with more needs that need more resources. So you're taking funding away to support a smaller percentage of kids, and then you leave kids with greater needs that cost more in an environment that's now losing all the energy and investment of these other families. My brother works in a charter school, so he and I have definitely had this discussion, but I'm also a lifelong believer in unions. And so I feel as challenging as it can be to have to negotiate and follow all the restrictions associated with unions, I really believe in worker protection and the sort of clear benefits that allows. And so I think that having heard many times in Beacon, newer families move in who were not necessarily enthusiastic about all the work that needed to be done in schools, one of the first things that would come up are like, maybe a charter school will start here. And that to me was a sign that they might have given up on making it better for all kids. And so I feel like we've just gone through a massive gentrification in the Hudson Valley. This will spread like wildfire if we're not careful.
Are there any other comments or questions about it? Okay, I'm going to take it to a vote. this would be sent to the SUNY. Not really sure exactly what they're called, but sorry, I don't have the letter right up in front of me. SUNY Charter Schools Institute. I'd actually like to do two votes, one about whether or not to approve the letter, and then a second about where it should go, because we'd also talked about during our committee meeting, sending it to the Highlands Current, and Poughkeepsie Journal, and Beacon Free Press. So for the first vote, can I have a motion to approve the letter to SUNY Charter Schools Institute regarding Little Water School?
So moved.
Laura, is there a second?
Second.
Greg, comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I oppose.
It passes 7-1. And then can I have a motion to send this letter not only to SUNY Charter Schools Institute, but also as a letter to the editor to Poughkeepsie Journal, Beacon Free Press, and Highlands Current?
So moved.
Kristen,
Second.
second by Alyssa. Comments or questions?
Is there a reason why we would just limit it to this side? I think that if we're sending a point to charters, maybe include the time served record as well for the other side of the river.
Sorry, yeah, I didn't even think.
Yeah, that
about
has a big circulation.
Do you want to amend it?
Yeah, I'd like to make an amendment to add to the time served record as well, in addition to the others.
Okay, so second from Craig. So voting on the amendment, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'm in favor, so passes 8-0. And then voting on the motion so now it's going to be sent to Kojo, Beacon Free Press, Highlands Current, and Times Herald Record. Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I oppose.
Opposed. So passes 7-1. Okay.
Mayor, can I ask a question?
Yes.
I don't know if I missed the ball on it, but like, can we CC NISBA on it as well to show the work that we're doing for charter school? It's not
Definitely.
to send it to them to publish, but so they're kept in
To
the
let
loop
them know.
as to what we're doing in the Hudson Valley area.
Yeah.
Do we even need a vote for that?
I don't
No,
think so.
No.
It's just board action.
it's
Yeah.
routine, you
Yeah.
know, it's a good idea.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. Excuse me, consent agenda. The use of the consent agenda permits the Board of Education to make more effective use of its time by adopting a single motion to cover those relatively routine matters which are included. Any member of the board who wishes to discuss individually a particular piece of business on the consent agenda may so indicate, and that item will be considered and voted on separately, thus preserving the right of all board members to be heard on any issue. Are there any items that any board member would like to have removed from the consent agenda?
I like to pull 11.03 and 11.07.
03 and 07
11.07
and 03.
and 03.
Okay, any other items? Can I have a motion to approve 11.01 through 11.08 less 11.03 and 11.07?
So moved.
Kristen, Alyssa, second. Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Well,
You're opposed to the,
Consent agenda?
oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's the consent agenda.
Aye.
Slow your roll a little bit here.
go to the part where you
I was reading, trying to multitask.
I know.
Multitask. Doesn't work out too well.
passes 8-0. Can I have a motion to approve 11.03?
So moved.
Kristen,
Second.
second from Flora. Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Passes 7-1. Can I have a motion for 11.07?
So moved.
Second.
Second by Kristen, first by Anthony White, or motion by Anthony
Do you have to
White.
change the schedule?
Comments or questions?
Yeah, so I was looking at the board calendar for next year and I was wondering if there was any chance of, I know that we have a practice of having 2 board meetings a month. But trying for the summer, because it's not as pressing, to have just one in July and one in August. And if we need to do a special meeting, if needed, in August, to do one a month in the summer.
I guess I wish I'd had a little bit of a heads up on that question because I could have discussed it with Matt. So
Do you want to table the calendar or does that, I don't feel like we've been that busy. I mean, I don't think we've been that slow in the summers.
we have summer school this summer, like, and it's a pandemic. I'm sort of, I feel
You mean
like,
for next year?
I mean,
Or
it's,
for the summer,
it's
yeah.
up, I mean, it's, I don't need the schedule tonight. If you wanted us to explore that, I would almost be certain we would need to call a special meeting or two to appoint people, probably.
for me, it's a little bit easier to know that these are the meetings because my travels, I actually already made my travel schedule around these meetings. So yeah, I guess.
But I mean, there are, I don't have this in my head, but there are districts that don't meet as often as we do generally. I'm not.
They haven't owned stadiums or had a lot of superintendents.
No. I'm just saying, like, it's not, it's not impossible if you all wanted to talk about it. I think we would need to do some sort of special appointment meeting for sure. I know my previous district, we would slow it down a little bit in the summer, but we always end up calling a couple special meetings to appoint people.
Well, I was just trying to say, can we strive for one, and if we need to, call a special board meeting on the dates that are there? So like if we needed to call a special board meeting, then it would be, the dates would be predetermined, but then it would give, hey, let's strive for one meeting.
I mean, it's common for board members to miss a meeting in the
It has
summer.
nothing to do with my schedule. Like
So it's
I
more
can
just,
make
this is
all
an
of it.
aspirational thing that you're
It
bringing
is. I
to the
think that
meeting right
we've
now.
made great strides. We've had stable leadership, and I think it would help tighten up the structures.
Yeah.
As to, hey, this is an outlook, right? So now you have a month, and you know that this is going to be the one shot. So it kind of makes it a little bit like, we got one time to do it.
Well, should we table it to really?
I would
'cause
certainly
I
not
have
like
no-
to make that decision right now, not
Yeah.
having been given any notice at all to think about it.
'cause I-
No, I brought it up. Listen, I'm fine if you guys go 8-1. It's fine. I don't have anything opposed to
It's
it.
a good thing to discuss. It's just, I don't think anybody's like given it any thought and I don't.
If it
wanna
was a
make
normal year, I would say, yeah, do it. But I feel like next fall is kind of going to be a big deal.
I think the appointments of teachers, I don't know how many vacancies we may have, but that's kind of some of the important business of summer sometimes comes up and you want to nail down a good candidate and not have them decide to go someplace else. That could be another factor to
I
keep in
agree
mind.
with you, and that's where I'm kind of saying, like, let's have all that at the July 7th reorg meeting. Right? So if we have one meeting and we have to have the July 7th, then we could say, hey, listen, we have to get our hiring done before July 7th to a point at the July 7th meeting. And I get it, but like, then it's like, okay, if we don't get someone for July 7th, oh, we have another meeting on the 19th.
I'd rather table it than try to like
Yeah,
argue the merits of something that I don't think any of us have really processed.
I haven't even thought about it.
So-
Motion to table?
Second.
All in favor? Are there any other comments or questions about that? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Passes 8-0.
I'm still gonna mark these dates because I have travel too.
I have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Oh, one comment, before that, young lady sitting in the back
Yeah.
has now
Yeah.
been officially appointed. Amanda.
Congratulations. Sorry.
Congratulations.
Amanda,
Welcome.
that's Amanda Volpe. She's going to be speech and language therapist at Forrestal.
Welcome,
year.
Amanda.
Thank you.
Good for you.
Thanks for sitting through the meeting.
I also really like your blouse and was gonna say that earlier.
Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Second by Flora. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 8-0. Have a great night, everyone.
Did it.